Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kim Tamaska, and I'm going to do this presentation in somewhat of an unorthodox way because for some reason I just could not get all the audio and all the stuff working with my beautiful PowerPoint presentation. So I have succumbed to having to do it this way, which is, that's what happens when you have a PowerPoint from 500 BC. Anyways, so we're going to talk about leadership today and becoming a self-actualized leader. Let's get started. So on the agenda, I'm going to talk about defining leadership, desirable leadership qualities, less desirable leadership qualities, what a leader does not have to be, leadership styles, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualizing leadership, leadership abilities, leadership actions, and leaders as followers, the cycle of growth as a leader. So in defining leadership, if you look up in Merriam-Webster, a leader is a person who leads. And so that can be a number of different types of people. It could be an officer, a manager, the president, a team captain, a conductor. So leaders can come in many different shapes and forms. And I always like to say that leaders are people who can become leaders. This is all inclusive and it's never exclusive. Leaders come in all different shapes and forms. And there's different types of leaders. You've got your team leaders, and you've also got people who are self or individual leaders and people who like to lead more by example. So desirable leadership qualities. Now I started off this slide with a quote from Peter Drucker, who says, "Effective leadership is not about making speeches or being liked. Leadership is defined by results, not attributes." So although I do agree with part of this, that good leaders can actually produce results, it's a lot of their attributes and these qualities that help them to produce the results to begin with. So some of these qualities that I feel and I believe make a good quality leader are someone who has experience in what they're doing. They're persistent people, magnanimous, honest. They are goal setters. They're ambitious, forthright, and they have integrity. They're self-motivated. They're resilient despite adversity. They have high aspirations. They're optimistic and realistic. They're accountable. They have courage. They're proactive. They're ethical. They have an attitude of gratitude. They have emotional stability for the most part. They demonstrate humility. They're disciplined and focused. They practice intentional learning. They have self-confidence. They're communicative. And as you can see, there's many other qualities. I also like the fact that they should have a high concern for people and a high concern of production, both of those things. And they want to see other people become successful as well as themselves. These less desirable leadership qualities, and they come in varying degrees. And it's not to say that these qualities necessarily mean that someone would be a bad leader, but in excess, it would definitely make for a less likable and probably a less effective leader. And some of those qualities I was thinking of are people who are more narcissistic, domineering, bossy, arrogant. They're self-serving and self-focused, tend to be deceitful, lazy, dishonest. They might cheat here and there. They're indecisive, disagreeable, unfriendly, or hypocritical. A leader does not have to be perfect or the best. Although they typically strive to be, they may not always be on their A game. And they may not always be happy all the time. But the one thing that you will definitely see in most effective leaders is that even though they experience highs and lows just like everyone else, and moments where they're not always on their A game, they're always working to strive to become better and to handle things more effectively and to strategize better the next time. So let's talk about leadership styles. There's many different leadership styles, and I just mentioned a couple here. The first one is the humanistic or transformational leadership style. And another one, which is sort of its opposite, is dictatorial or transactional leadership. And for the purpose of this presentation, we're going to focus on more of the humanistic and transformational. But it's good to see the comparison of the two different types so that way you can make a judgment for yourself of, okay, well, what type of leader do I want to follow and what kind of leader do I want to be? And so you can see in the transactional and transformational leaders here on the PowerPoint that you have different categories which they rank, and they sort of differentiate these two leadership styles. One is leader source of power, follower reaction, time frame, rewards, supervision, counseling focus, where change occurs and where leadership is found. And something that's interesting is if you look especially at the rewards portion, you'll see in the transactional leadership, you will see more of the extrinsic rewards like pay and promotion, whereas in the transformational leader, you will see more of the intrinsic rewards where you're going to develop pride, self-esteem, self-confidence. This type of a leader is going to develop certain attributes in their team that really help them to develop in the long haul. So, and they really form a sense of loyalty to one another, and they're really more focused on this big picture of development rather than just in the short term, right? It even says in the time frame, short term versus long term. Okay, so and this is where I felt that Maslow's hierarchy of needs actually fits in very well with all of this. Abraham Maslow proposed the hierarchy of needs in 1943, and they were published in one of his books in 1954. Now, according to Maslow, self-actualization represents growth of an individual towards fulfillment of the highest needs, those for meaning in life in particular. We become efficient in how we perceive reality and accepting ourselves and of other people. So these kind of people can form deep, intimate relationships. They appreciate and have gratitude of life. They're guided by their own inner goals and values, and they're able to express emotions freely and clearly. And here we see self-actualizing leadership. I put this Maslow's pyramid right here. So this is the hierarchy of needs. We start with our physiological needs at the bottom, move to safety needs, belongingness, ego needs, and self-actualization. And the reason I really put this in here is once we become self-actualizing individuals, we operate on a completely different level in how we treat other people and how we approach life. It's like there's a paradigm shift that starts to occur. And I want to relate this to the different leadership styles. So if you see, there's like different slogans in the examples on the right. The self-actualization one, they used an example from the U.S. Army, and that says, be all you can be. And that perfectly encompasses what it is to be a self-actualizing individual. And if you look below, and the ego needs, now these are people who are operating, or if the leadership style would be operating from more of a prestige or status and accomplishment point of view. These are more selfish, I guess you could say, needs and things that need to be fulfilled. And although they are necessary, if you get, for example, a leader who focuses or is driven by more ego needs, that's when you would get more of a dictatorial or transactional sort of a leader. So that's why we want to strive for this more self-actualization frame of mind. Self-actualization leadership competency skills. So, number one I have on here is the ability to recognize in all people the drive for self actualization. So, not only are we, number two, it says here, striving to be self actualizers ourselves, but we need to, as a leader, help other people to achieve the same. Number three, it says ability to facilitate the development and engagement of a vision. So we have to be able to see the vision. We have to see the big picture and help people compartmentalize and set goals in order to achieve the greater good or the greater vision. Number four is collaborate rather than monopolize. I don't know how many of you have actually, we've all been in some sort of a team environment by now in our lives. But to be with a leader who completely dominates and monopolizes versus with a leader who encourages you and encourages your growth and encourages open-mindedness and feedback and things like that is a completely different developmental process than just being told what to do, which actually can make your self-esteem start to go lower. So, and we have number five, they are action oriented because it's all about putting things into action. They have a good game plan going on. So leadership abilities, and I'm going to give some examples of real life situations that correlate with these. So an effective leader will stimulate interest among teammates and followers to view their work from new perspectives. So for an example of this would be, say you're at football practice or volleyball practice or whatever it is, and you're not performing the way you want to, right? And you have your leader, your team captain, that encourages you to look at things from a different perspective. Yes, you're not playing as well today, but this is all part of the process. This is part of your developmental process. Once you start to look at things from that different perspective, it's much easier to move forward and continue to accept, what you might perceive as negative and to turning it into something positive. The next one on here is generating awareness of the mission and the vision of the team and the organization. I also have here develop colleagues and followers to higher levels of ability and potential. That's a given. Motivate colleagues and followers to look beyond their own interests towards those who will benefit the group. So we're no longer just being self-seeking and thinking of ourselves. It's about what's going to benefit the whole. And good leaders will also take time for personal reflection because they know that unless they're continuing to work on themselves, they will not have as much to share with others, first of all. And we are all works in progress. We never reach this peak and just stay at this peak. They always say life's a journey, and so is leadership. Okay, leadership actions. This is actually one of my favorite ones. I love the whole goal setting idea, the whole goal setting concept. Leaders help team members achieve SMART goals. Not only achieve them, but even set SMART goals. And I like SMART goals because they make sense. SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And it doesn't have to be that, but it's a very good and strategic way to go about setting goals for oneself and for an entire team. And good leaders will also know how to delegate responsibilities to other individuals and include teammates in planning processes, and also rotate responsibilities, not just delegate responsibilities, but rotate responsibilities so that other teammates get to participate in other activities, and that's a way to empower your teammates. They also set environments that encourage constructive communication. They form a team goal consensus, so not only individual goals, but team goals. They ask for input from athletes regarding training environment. So it's about feedback. It's about constructive feedback so that we can continue to move towards this pinnacle towards self-actualization. leaders as followers. And you see I have a little triangle there. That's my little trifecta with the little warrior guy in there. Self-actualizing leaders are constantly growing and changing. And in order to do that, you've got to stay in the middle. And what I mean by stay in the middle is that you have a mentor, someone that you can learn from, that has those leadership skills that you want to continue to strive to achieve. And that could be many people. It doesn't have to just be one person. And they're usually an exemplary example of leadership. And so they're in the middle, they have a mentor that they're looking up to, and then they also have someone that they're teaching or that they're leading. Okay? And that's when you move from a position of just being a self-leader and doing things as a self-actualizer and moving to a team leader, self-actualized individual. So when you have not only the person that you're looking up to, but the people who you're helping guide through the entire process. So I have here at the end, it says, this is one of my favorite quotes by Mahatma Gandhi. It says, "Be the change that you want to see in the world." And Mahatma Gandhi was very much a leader by example. And he led his life with grace, dignity, and honesty, and clarity. And so I picked this quote because this is the ideal, this is the pinnacle of what it is to be a self-actualized leader, someone like Mahatma Gandhi. So thank you so much for watching.